Hello everybody. I wanted to show you how I made this animation, the eagle flying through the canyon. So this is a Procreate Dreams animation and also a Procreate painting. So it's for me always the couple now, the Procreate plus Procreate Dreams, and it's also performing. I will show you how I did everything from scratch here. So let's start with the painting part. Let's jump into Procreate first. So here we have the scene in Procreate. I'm gonna start just the time lapse so you can see. Initially, I wasn't sure if I was gonna have it 16 by 9 or scope like so I kept both frames in there just to see that I could use both of those framings. And then I usually start out with like a rough just like a pencil sketch, and then I fill in solids. So these are in separate layers, or I took them apart so that what you see is solid now. That's on one separate layer as a sketch, and then I fill that in by selecting the negative automatic selection, then inverting the selection just to get these solids. And they're of course on different layers so they can be animated separately. Also the river, separate layer. So this is sort of the canyon. Like once I'm happy with the black and white sketch, then I jump into color. So often I'll paint in an overlay layer, but with this one I just painted straight in because there's no detail in there at the moment anyway. I wanted to build it up with the color, painting it in this way. And I kept it fairly small on the screen while painting it, kind of thumbnailing it and using mainly one brush, like the grit rull brush, one of my favorite brushes. That has a lot of texture and also some color dynamics to it. So for each time I draw with it, it's a slightly different hue, brightness, saturation. So it gives a more playful and vivid color palette altogether. And also here you see I'm playing around like with a light, with the sun there. I also have several layers on, for example, add mode or screen. I'm trying out different things like how to get that exact sort of sunlight, the beam of it the way I want it. So playing around with different blend modes there. So the painting of this whole environment didn't take that long. Less than 2 hours I think I spent on it, because it's I wouldn't say there's much detail at all. It's all pretty sketchy at this point, or throughout the process. I didn't put in much detail, but I didn't think it needed it either. It's kind of nice with that playful part. And with the clouds here, you see I'm just painting on a new layer. I'm just painting with the same grit roll brush. Here you also see the color dynamics. You see it's a few different variations in there. And I'm also erasing with the same brush. So and then I'm also smudging with the same brush. I'm going to show you that live later. It makes it's a super nice way to make clouds. And you don't have to use that exact brush, but painting out some parts and then smudging is really, really powerful. Yeah, so here I'm on to the bird, but we'll get back to that one. But environment-wise, this is pretty much it. So let me just show you how I did one of these. And here's the glow that I also put in at the end. So this is in the Dreams file that we will jump into. This one is on top here. Also in add mode, blend mode. So to make a cloud, just make a new layer, and the brush that I talked about is this one of my custom ones. So, you know, just painting a bit like this, and then grabbing the smudge, same brush, doesn't need to be, and then just tapping and smudging out a bit. So that's pretty much how I make these clouds. And then you can of course always alpha lock them and then give them like a different hue, or you can paint in, you can adjust it with curves if you want to make it brighter, or you know, push it in a direction color wise. So that's how I did the clouds. And let's jump into Dreams now, because this is pretty much it in Procreate. So here we are in Dreams. At the moment the bird, eagle, is just flapping in one place. We will perform him later. Let me just show you the setup here. So I got the bird on one track, marked it red. You can set highlights like this. It's really nice. Like when you only have a few tracks like this, it's easy to keep an overview, but when you have a bunch like this, you see the color code is really helping. So the oranges, those are like the mountains, the solid parts. The yellows are light, everything to do with the sun and the sun rays and stuff. The white or gray, they are clouds, and the blue is the water, the river. So it's really easy to find them zoomed out, and you know, you can zoom out to this level, and then it's really easy to like, okay, here's the water, for example. So the animation of the environment here, let me just turn off the eagle. It's really simple. It's only scale. Everything is just scaling in different tempos. So you have, or in the same, the stuff that's closest to us is scaling up more than the stuff further into the scene. That's the whole secret. Or not the whole secret. This is also the very important one, the vanishing point. So when you want to feel like stuff is coming towards you, you need to scale that thing up in size. But when you have many elements of one scene here, that needs to scale from the same vanishing point. So let's start with the cloud is sort of the top one. So if I tap the little three-dotted menu on the side of an element and say edit anchor, you see it's exactly where that vanishing point is. And so is all the rest of these elements. They're also vanishing point in the same place. Which means if I scale now, it's going to scale to or away from that point. So that's the whole animation. It's really just coming towards us like this. And you see the stuff that moves further, that's the stuff that's closest to us. So that's how simple that setup is. And it's kind of magic just how effective it feels. It's just scaling towards us. And it gives that nice 3D feeling and still having that painterly look on it. And you see, like, you know, the lack of detail. I didn't push the painting far here, but even that rough, you can still make it come to life like this. And the sun flare, this is also set in that add mode. This one is rotating slightly, and I felt that was a nice little, when I play it back, it's not easy to see that it's rotating, but it gives that little more movement than just moving, you know, just matching up with a background. And if I go a bit down here to the background, this one, that consists of several parts: the sky, the mountains further away, the more haze. So that stuff moves so little with the movement here, so that this part could just be animated as one, right? And then from the river onwards, that's where I do the specific scalings. So on to the eagle. So that was the environment scaling from the same vanishing point. That's the quick way of saying it. So on to the eagle. Let me just turn off the environment for that. So the eagle is a frame by frame animated loop. But you see, it's not just that basic loop. It has a couple of flaps that are a bit more soaring, you know, like 2-3 flaps and then a couple of less ones, just to give it a bit more life, you know, so it's not so robotic, the exact same flap each time. And I think that helps a lot. And if I go into the eagle part, you see, so these are the sections that are repeated several times. So the loop is sort of starting here, several flaps that are similar, so that you could say that's 3 flaps, 3 loops in that way. And then it's a bit more soaring here, and then it goes into the 3 flaps again, and then the 2 soaring, and that's what's repeated. So it's all just 4 bigger loops, and then of course for each drawing here you have the same. So here you have the onion skins. So I animated this on 6 frames per second first, and then I did the in-betweens and set it to 12 frames per second. So each frame lasts for 2 frames. So you see that it has this the setup here is 24 frames per second, and then each drawing lasts for 2 frames, so that's 12 frames per second, which is usually what I do with characters and stuff like that. And then environments, it's nice to have 24, because then you get smoother motion on the camera movements and stuff like that. And let me show you a little trick here. I don't think many knows about this yet or have found this, but you know, you have the multi-select here. You can multi-select several drawings and then grab one side, set one finger down, and then you can scale up and down all of these at the same time. So, you know, if you had a bunch of drawings that were, you know, 1 frame each, and you're like, ugh, I need to make all of these become last 2 frames, right? And you can always like drag them out like this. But if you just multi-select these, and then I use the Apple Pencil to like just grab one side, and then I put my thumb down from the other hand down on the screen, and then I can just snap them all out in one go. So the multi-select has some hidden power there. Okay, so that's the flapping, the loops, and these loops are put into one group. So that's the eagle, the full eagle. So how I did the animation or the perform, the first thing I did was to set 2 keyframes for scale. So I start with being on frame 1, setting a move key, move and scale. So this one, you see that the vanishing point or the anchor point is there. And I felt that that was a good place to have it, because when the bird is rotating, I kind of felt it felt more natural that it's kind of rotating from that anchor point, so that it's not, you know, maybe the more kind of like the first thing you think is maybe this is the right place, but it feels more like an airplane then. I feel when I'm rotating it doesn't feel right. So vanishing point, this is a good place for it. So one scale key here, and from the beginning I wanted it to be pretty big, so it's kind of like flying, almost coming from right behind us and flying past us in a way. And then at the end here, just scaled it down. I can move it now, of course, so I can see it. I kind of want it to end up way in there. So now it has scale and also transform keys, but we will do our own transform with the perform. But it's more natural because by default you usually have the ease in, ease out, so it's going to start flying in one place, and then it's going to start also the scaling, and then it's going to do the whole movement and then slow down again, which doesn't really make sense for this scene. So for us, I'm going to open up these. So for us it makes more sense that it moves faster in the beginning. It's kind of flying past us, past the camera, fast. And the further into the scene it goes, the more it's going to kind of slow down. Not the speed of the eagle, but that's always how it is. When something is passing you fast, it moves really much. When you think about the 2D part of of your camera, so to say, and the further away it goes, the more movement it makes on the canvas. So we want to have, let me collapse this again. So I long hold on the animation track, set all easing to ease out. So you see now it's moving faster in the beginning. And then further into the scene here, it scales less here. So more is happening here and then less here. And that makes sense. So that's the only thing I start out with. It's nice to have the scale, and I'll show you why now. So now I want to perform first I will perform the transform, like where the bird is, and then I'll do the rotation afterwards, because that's also a nice thing about the perform, you can divide it up like that. So I press the perform button, and I want the filtering to be pretty high here. So not like 100%, but maybe around 60, 50, something like that. Let's try it out. So as soon as I touch the canvas now with the Apple Pencil or the finger, it will start to play your animation and record the movement of the thing you're performing. So a little into the right and then over to the left, a little higher up and then down to the right again. Okay, so you see all the keyframes that popped up there. I'm going to turn off perform for now. Just going to look at that, if it's looks okay, if it's not too janky. The cool thing is it's a natural movement, you know, you're doing it with your hand, So you get all these flaws as well, but because the motion filtering were high, you don't get all that jittering. Like if your hand is a bit shaky or so, you filtered that out. So you see, if I zoom down to each frame, you know, you see where the red dot is above there on the ruler. You see it's still like a good gap between each keyframe. And if I open up this one now, expand, you see that sometimes it sets an X key and sometimes a Y. So Y is up and down movement, and then X is sideways. So it's, and you can delete these, you can move them around, so you can still edit these. I'm gonna collapse this again. Gonna go to start, and we're gonna do the banking. And with transform, you need to follow the bird, right? You're making the movement, so you need to, with your Apple Pencil, you need to be where that movement is going. But with rotation, you don't need to do that. You can kind of rotate in the spot. So I'm staying here with the rotation, even though the bird is flying into the scene, which is really nice. It makes it much easier to do the perform on the rotation. So I'm going to keep the same filtering and just rotate it to one side, and then it's gonna even out, and then rotate it more to the other side, and then even it out again. So that's it. Let's expand these again. So now you see the rotation keys here. Let's have a look at the animation. Maybe could have banked a little earlier there, but it's nice. I like it. Yep, gonna keep that. It's basically to show you how this was done. So you can still have like a nice loop, and it can, you know, you don't have to do the whole movement like this frame by frame, or, you know, the perform is really nice. So let me just collapse the move and scale. So the last thing I also did is, because this bird is flying away from us, and the further away it goes, the more I want it to be hazed out, right? Like the mountains, the further away they are, the more the dark parts are brighter, right? It's more haze between us. So I'm gonna add another track above our eagle, and I'm gonna go into paint mode, and I'm gonna pick one of my favorite Dreams brushes. It's very simple. It's this one, just a big square, and I'm gonna pick, like, for our bird, when it gets further away, maybe the darkest point can be something like what we see here. So I'll just pick that color, and I'm going to just tap. So this is our big block of that color. Just gonna extend it, fill duration, pull it to the left, just to make it last our whole time, the timeline. Can go out of paint mode now. So I want this to cover the whole bird. So basically I'm just scaling it out like this, you know, to cover the whole canvas. And then I want to clip mask this to the bird. So long hold, mask, and then clip mask. Then it clip masks to whatever is right underneath in the timeline here. So you see now the bird is, you know, faded out. So we need to animate. We want it to be 100% here. So I'm gonna just set a filter keyframe on opacity, but the closer it is to us, maybe around here, we don't really need any more of that haze. Maybe here, maybe something like this. So now you see it fades in from this point on, maybe a little further in, like that. And we can set this to set easing. I think linear is fine for that one. Let's just have a look at it. So here is nice and dark. And from this point on, the hazing is fading in. Feels more natural then. So cool. That's it. That's how I did the animation. And with the cool sound and music from Dan Howell, it looks like this. See you soon. Bye.